In the aftermath of the infected attack on Jackson, Tommy takes a moment to say goodbye to Joel as Ellie is admitted to a hospital. 3 months later, Jackson is still being rebuilt and Ellie is deemed physically ready to leave the hospital. Her first goal? To find and kill the people who murdered Joel, obviously. But that task has to be sanctioned by Jackson's town people, so at a town hall meeting, Ellie reads a letter persuading the townspeople to send a group out for justice, not revenge. And I don't really know how I feel about that, because Ellie in the video game was not interested in taking the time to justify her actions to the town. She was angry, she was bloodthirsty, so I don't believe that she would be able to write a speech that appeals to her fellow townfolk, because she's not thinking logically. That's the whole point of the game. Even if she doesn't believe in the speech that she wrote, it's weird to see her spouting what her entire arc is supposed to be long before she ever actually gets there herself. That behavior is antithetical to what her journey is supposed to be. So the scene just felt really out of place for me. But the town council ends up rejecting Ellie's proposal, so she gathers all her stuff in an attempt to leave anyway. Luckily for her, Dina knows the names and the location of Abby's crew, so she provides Ellie with a better plan than just go out and find them somehow. Then, Seth, who vocally supported Ellie during the town hall, helps them both sneak out of Jackson. And I'll get back to Seth in a second, but for now, I'd like to point out that Ellie's journey being unsanctioned by Maria is another deviation from the video game. And it'll be interesting to see how differently the people of Jackson are going to view Ellie's character as a result. Another change is how Tommy doesn't go out to hunt Abby and her crew before Ellie, and I have no idea how that's going to affect the story being told here. I mean, I like how Tommy has a bigger role to play in Jackson's community, but it'll be interesting to see how certain plot points will play out in Seattle if Tommy isn't there. Speaking of which, as Ellie and Dina make it to Seattle, they encounter a group of people who were killed by the WLF, aka the group of people that Abby and her friends are associated with. And this is another change that I'm not exactly sure how I feel about. Because when the Seraphites are introduced in the game, they're introduced as antagonists. You're playing as Ellie, you're traversing through the woods, and then you suddenly hear whistling in the background. You get hit with an arrow, and you're suddenly being hunted by strangers in hoods with pitchforks. And you find out that these people are weird cultists who hang their enemies. It's a terrifyingly scary moment in the video game. But here, they're introduced in a scene that is supposed to make us feel sympathy for them, and I'm not exactly sure why that is. I mean, yeah, we do eventually gain some sympathy for the Seraphites over the course of the game, but that sympathy is earned slowly over time. So these changes fundamentally alter how the story was presented in the video game. Now, look, I hate that I keep comparing the show to the video game. The series should be able to stand on its own and deviate from the game when it wants to. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But if the viewer already has sympathy for the Seraphites, sees that Tommy's character has already arced, sees that Ellie already knows what kind of path her character should be on, and already has some empathy towards Abby, then what are we even doing here? Where is there left to go? So my issue isn't exactly with the changes in and of themselves, but with how these specific changes will alter my experience with the story being told. But there are some changes from the video game that I did enjoy, like Seth's inclusion in this episode, for example. In the video game, Seth is a character who was introduced as a bigot, was forced to make an apology, and that's all we ever see of him. But in this episode, Seth returns to, surprisingly enough, support and even help Ellie and Dina. And this allows us to see that people are complicated. So I would say that this change is a good one, especially since it is in line with the overarching theme of the story being told here. I also liked seeing Ellie leaving coffee beans on Joel's grave. That was obviously a touching and emotional little moment, and I also like how Ellie and Dina haven't had sex yet, because it's clear that this iteration of Ellie still has some growing up to do, and I think as her relationship with Dina starts to develop, we'll also see her start to develop some signs of maturity. It's just gonna suck for her when she finds out that Dina is pregnant. Spoilers if you didn't already know that, but the show has definitely planted the early warning signs. And as Ellie and Dina finally arrive in Seattle, they happily note the surprising lack of WLF members. Unfortunately for them, they don't realize that a convoy of dozens of soldiers are currently marching through the streets of Seattle with several armed vehicles. So their quest to find Abby and her friends is probably going to be a little harder than they originally planned, and I do want to see how they'll be dealing with that unexpected threat. So while I may have complained a lot about this episode, especially with how it compares to the video game, that doesn't take away from the fact that this is a very good show that I absolutely do enjoy watching each and every week. I'm just curious to see how the changes being made from the video game will ultimately affect the story of this season. And I hope that the showrunners didn't just spoon feed us all of the important themes and character arcs because they feared that they would lose the TV audience after Joel's death, especially since there is a lot of good story left to be told here. But I guess we'll see how that story will unfold in the next episode of The Last of Us once it gets released on Sunday.